Sheena shyly posed, her cheeks blushing, trying to stand still for Amin to draw. Amin was almost finished with his sketch, each brushstroke flowing skillfully on the paper, exuding confidence. Nade stood aside, unable to suppress his awe at Amin's talent. Wow, how does he draw so well? It's hard to believe. I wonder how he does it. He murmured, his eyes wide with excitement. Eruki, after a brief moment of thought, spoke up. He must have used his domain. Nade quickly turned to him, excited to discuss. You mean he must be at least at genre level? Right? Meanwhile, Shirone remained silent, his gaze focused on every movement of Amin. Slowly he stood up, his voice trembling slightly, as if hesitant. Uncle Amin. Shirone paused for a moment, then asked a question that made Amin stop drawing immediately. You can see, right? Amin immediately smiled, slowly turning his head to look at Shirone, his gaze holding something mysterious. He calmly removed the eye patch, speaking while looking directly at Shirone. I've been waiting for you for a long time, Shirone. I wonder if you've noticed. Shirone stood frozen in front of the scene. Amin's eyes shone brightly, like two flames burning, staring into him. Amin stepped closer, his voice rising and falling. Did you notice, Shirone? I've been waiting to see when you'd figure it out. Shirone, his heart pounding, unconsciously kept tapping Nade on the head, but couldn't utter a word. Finally, he shouted, his voice full of excitement. Nade, Eruki, come here, look! Uncle Amin's eyes. They're unbelievable. Shirone turned around, stunned to see his two friends standing frozen like statues. Shina didn't move either, remaining in the same seated position. He quickly rushed over to check each of them, his voice filled with astonishment. What is this? Wait. From behind, Amin spoke, his voice steady. It's magic. A brilliant golden light surrounded Amin, radiating a majestic aura that made him appear like a god. This technique is called stasis, he explained. Shirone's eyes widened in disbelief at what he was seeing, exclaiming, no way. In his mind, he was spinning in shock, thinking, I can't believe I'm witnessing a mage reach the level of casting time magic at the speed of light. Amin smiled calmly, gesturing for him to sit down. Sit down, Shirone. Stay calm. Let's talk. Because we have plenty of time, Amin said, his voice calm yet carrying a sense of mystery. In that very moment, his room suddenly transformed. Sections of space split apart, creating thousands of different rooms, intertwining like an endless maze. Shirone stood frozen, a silly smile on his face, still unable to believe what was happening in front of him. Amin sat down in the chair opposite, his posture relaxed, slowly revealing. To be honest, I've always been worried. I knew you'd figure it out soon, Shirone. Shirone was startled, confused, and asked, You knew I would figure it out? Amin smiled, pointing to the white cloth that had once been wrapped around his eyes, explaining, Ordinary people receive light through their eyes and then recreate it into images. But my eyes, they are light themselves. Amin continued, his eyes shining brightly as he looked directly at Shirone. The moment I looked at you, I knew we were alike in one way. Shirone hesitated, his voice trembling, reasoning. Could it be? Before he could finish, Amin nodded, affirming, Exactly. He smiled kindly, revealing the power of immortality. Shirone's eyes widened in shock, utterly stunned. He hesitated, still trembling, and asked, Can I ask about the power of immortality? Amin, without hesitation, explained clearly, the power of immortality is the door to reincarnation. Those who open this door are called the key bearers. The light from Amin's eyes pierced through the white cloth, glowing as brightly as flames. Before Shirone, an image appeared, a lock bursting open, surrounded by a brilliant golden aura enveloping him. Shirone, you've opened that door, Amin said, his voice deep yet captivating. Before Shirone, a beam of emerald light appeared, sparkling and surrounded by a circle of mysterious power. The mind of a keybearer flows into the endless realm. Amin continued, and from there they feel immense strength and liberation. Shirone listened intently, each word engraving itself into his mind. Noticing the tension briefly flicker across his face, Amin smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, Shirone. As long as you don't exceed your limits, your mind will remain intact. Shirone quickly replied, his voice tinged with excitement. Really? Actually, I've been dreaming about the universe every night. Amin was surprised, his eyes lighting up. The universe? Shirone nodded, but his voice suddenly became serious, revealing his concern. I'm not sure if this is good or bad, Uncle. I've hidden it from my friends, Shirone hesitated, his voice trembling slightly. But these supernatural sensations, it feels like I'm losing my mind. He paused, then continued, his eyes filled with worry. And it seems a bit dangerous too. Amin smiled, looking at Shirone with a warm gaze. I understand. He gestured reassuringly, his voice full of optimism. Magic has chosen you, Shirone. It is fond of you. Shirone was confused, not fully understanding. Amin continued to explain, his voice slow yet captivating. First of all, the symptoms you're experiencing are unavoidable. Before Shirone, an image appeared. He was floating in midair, surrounded by the vast universe, with thousands of sparkling stars. Amin spoke, guiding him. Where you've reached is the infinite realm of the universe. Anyone who faces reincarnation in such an overwhelming space would be afraid. That fear is the trigger, leading to enlightenment. The image of Shirone unlocking the universe appeared radiant. Amin continued, most key bearers will achieve mastery over space. But Shirone, the fear you're feeling isn't related to space. You've confronted something entirely different. He smiled, reassuring him once again, the moment you realize what it is, your worry will vanish. Hearing this, Shirone immediately became excited, his eyes lighting up, as if he had just found a glimmer of hope. How can I know? Shirone asked, his eyes filled with curiosity and worry. Amin smiled kindly and replied, you will find your way, Shirone. I don't know exactly when. It could be soon, or it might take a lifetime to realize. His words made Shirone's mood drop, and he muttered, a lifetime. Amin immediately reassured him, his voice warm. But don't worry. Behind him, an image of Shirone's cosmic soul appeared, sparkling like a starry sky. It's already within you. Amin continued, you just haven't named it yet. Shirone pondered deeply, then asked, is it something that hasn't been unlocked? The universe exists, but it's inside me. I don't quite understand. Suddenly he added, his voice a little hesitant. Or is it related to the light and the threads I've dreamed of? The statement made Amin stop, his eyes lighting up as if he had just realized something. He smiled. Perhaps it's related to the gouge symmetry theory. Shirone's eyes widened, repeating, gouge symmetry theory? Amin nodded and began explaining. Scholars believe this world is perfect. Humans, under the influence of supernatural forces in the universe, are governed by the perfect laws of physics, a world that can be explained through mathematics. His voice rose and fell, guiding Shirone into a new realm of knowledge. Just like the speed of light being constant, Amin continued, his voice steady, this ideal symmetry looks like a masterpiece meticulously arranged by someone. But over time, the world has changed, and the forces acting on humans have gradually deviated from their original path. The more we study, the more we realize that symmetry has been broken. We live in an imperfect world, and no one knows what caused that fracture. He paused, his gaze deep, then concluded, it's an unknown existence. But if it's you, Shirone, I believe you'll find it. Shirone, encouraged by his words, awkwardly replied, thank you, uncle. He smiled, his eyes lighting up as if he had just realized something important. Thank you so much, Uncle Amin. I think I can do it. Shirone hesitated, his voice tinged with a bit of regret. I've followed the professor, but I'm really happy to have met you. Amin smiled, turned to look at Sheena, then said to Shirone, take care of Sheena. Amin smiled kindly, looking at Shirone and saying, she's more tender-hearted than you think. Shirone suddenly remembered something, quickly asking, why did you hide your ability, uncle? You could have told her. Amin bent down, his voice low and sad as he explained, Shayna has always worried about me because of her sense of guilt, but my eyes, they can't be healed. It's useless for her to waste her time on me. He hesitated for a moment as if something had crossed his mind. Also, I'm already married. Amin turned back and continued drawing. Shirone silently observed while he held the pen and reflected, I want Shayna to live her own life. Shayna sat still, posing for the painting, her cheeks flushed, exuding the grace of a noble woman from ancient times. Shirone sat there, reflecting on the conversation they had just had. Nearby, Nade and Eruki chatted excitedly. He recalled Amin's words and smiled, as if silently agreeing, promise me, keep this secret. The painting of Shayna in her bright golden dress, like autumn leaves, was finally finished. Amin looked at her, his voice sincere. Thank you so much, Shayna. Thank you, Sheena, Amin said, his voice warm. Shayna smiled modestly, replying, it's nothing. We're close like family. She paused for a moment, then gently added, today is the last day. When you're settled somewhere else, I'll write to you. Amin nodded immediately without hesitation. Yes, I'll reply. He turned to Shirone, Nade, and Eruki, giving them a reminder, make sure to study well, kids. The three replied in unison, their faces bright. Thank you so much, uncle. Amin smiled and looked at Sheena. See you later. Sheena, feeling a bit reluctant, said in a soft voice, well, I'm going now. Suddenly, a bright voice rang out from afar. Darling, I'm back from shopping. Have you finished the drawing? The four of them, Sheena, Shirone, Nade, and Eruki, froze and turned to look. A girl appeared, radiant in appearance, and she was Amin's wife. She smiled cheerfully and called out, oh my, Miss Shayna, are you leaving already? Stay and have a meal with us. Shirone's eyes widened as he looked at the girl and then turned to Amin, muttering, Uncle Amin, your taste is really unique. The girl bent down, looking closely at Sheena's face, her voice curious. Why is your face so red? Darling, Miss Sheena doesn't look well. Sheena, flustered, couldn't get a word out. Nade quickly interjected, breaking the awkward silence. Oh, come on. Shayna and the students hurriedly made their exit, with Nade calling out, sorry, we're busy. I'm leaving now. Amin could only wave, his voice short. Goodbye, Shayna. The red-haired girl stood behind, her sharp eyes following their every move. Once the group was out of sight, she turned to Amin. her tone sarcastic. I wonder if the higher-ups will believe this. Amin Guangyan showing such an expression. Amin responded coldly, his voice emotionless. Stop whining. Just give the report. She immediately began, her tone smooth. We need to leave Chris for Kelpira. There are a lot of nuisances on the way, but compared to Amin Guangyan, they're nothing. Then she switched to a mocking tone, full of sarcasm. Wait, I should call you the soul seeker of the eternal realm, right? Amin quietly walked into the house, his voice low. I'll do exactly as agreed. Stop with that nonsense. The girl raised an eyebrow, still not letting go. May I ask? You haven't told Sheena yet, have you? The red-haired girl asked, her gaze sharp. Seeing Amin remain silent, she reminded him, her voice firm. Don't forget, the lives of those you love are at risk. Amin responded coldly, his tone sharp as a knife. Don't worry. Sheena knows nothing. Up ahead, Sheena walked silently, not saying a word. Nade, worried, muttered, this is bad. Shirone turned to him, confused. What's wrong? Nade explained, his voice filled with concern. At this rate, Sheena's mood is really bad. When we get back to the academy, we're definitely going to be punished for spying and breaking in. The research team will surely be disbanded. He suddenly called out loudly, Professor Shina! Shayna stopped in her tracks and turned around. Nade stepped forward, his voice playful, pleading, can we eat before we head back? Eruki immediately chimed in, yeah, we're starving. Shirone smiled kindly, adding, it's rare for us to go out. We have to eat something, don't we, Professor? Sheena looked at her 3 students, seeing their pitiful expressions, and her heart softened. She sighed, I guess you're right. You're so hungry and it's been a rough day. She quickly nodded, turning to walk on. All right, let's go. We'll eat until we're full. The 3 behind her, seeing their plan succeed, cheered in unison. Awesome! Nade aimed for the final goal, to lift Sheena's spirits, to avoid punishment. Eruki, however, was focused solely on the meal, muttering, tonight I'm going to order something really expensive. Only Shirone was paying attention to Shayna's emotions. He thought to himself, she's sad because she has to say goodbye to Uncle Amin. We need to encourage her. 2 hours later, as evening set in a restaurant in the city, Sheena's voice rang out, slightly tipsy, give me more. Her students' panicked voices cried out, Professor, I'm sorry. Stop, please. Shayna, her face flushed from the alcohol, raised the bottle high and shouted, another bottle, please? The group below pleaded in fear. Please don't drink anymore, Professor. A question lingered. What's happening to Shayna? 2 hours earlier, before they found themselves in this desperate situation, the table had been beautifully set with fragrant dishes. Nade watched as Shayna poured herself more wine, puzzled. Professor, are you really going to drink? Sheena smirked, raising her glass, and teasingly replied, so what? It's fine for you all to break into my house, but I can't drink wine? Nade quickly laughed nervously, waving it off. No, it's your day off, Professor. Feel free to drink as much as you want. Shirone, quickly picking up different dishes, kept exclaiming, this is so delicious. Eruki laughed at his innocence. You look like it's your first time eating this. Meanwhile, Nade quickly poured more wine for Sheena, trying to win her favor. I'll pour the wine for you, Professor. Nade eagerly offered, but Sheena quickly snatched the bottle back, swatting at him as if to chase away a bad omen. You're just a kid, and you want to handle this stuff? Nade smiled brightly, but inwardly he was calculating, I need to make her happy, then I can ask for anything. He subtly glanced at Sheena, his mind working on his plan. Meanwhile, Shirone happily shared food with Eruki. Hey, try this dish too. Eruki shook his head, grimacing, no thanks, I'm already full. Nade, still dreaming big, grinned mischievously, thinking to himself, I'll definitely find her weakness. About an hour later, Nade yelped, tears welling up as Shayna pinched his chubby cheeks hard. You troublesome kid. Shayna laughed loudly, drunk, teasing him while still pinching his cheeks. Why are your cheeks always so plump? Shirone and Eruki, sitting across from them, started to worry, exchanging whispers. She's really drunk now. Suddenly, Sheena turned sharply, making both of them jump. You too! One hand still gripping Nade's cheek, the other pointing at Shirone and Eruki, she bellowed, you two were amazing during the speed shooting test. Both of you are so talented, so why are you slacking off at school? Sheena's voice grew softer, choking with emotion, tears rolling down her cheeks. No matter how talented, there are so many people out there who can't reach their dreams. She spoke, her voice wavering with sorrow. You think I'm a terrible professor, but what about you? Shirone quickly reassured her, his voice anxious. No, we don't think that. Sheena's face was flushed from the alcohol, her eyes filled with a sadness that was hard to express. Suddenly, as if losing her balance, she collapsed onto the dining table. Professor! The group yelled, panicked, seeing Shayna slump forward, unmoving. Eruki, casually picking his teeth, commented nonchalantly, the meal's over, we're stuffed. The 3 of them looked at their teacher, sharing the same thought. She's still not awake. Nade, still chewing, anxiously said, what do we do now? She hasn't even paid for the meal. Shirone hurried over. gently shaking Sheena, calling out frantically, "Professor, wake up, Professor!" At that moment, a man spoke up, his voice accompanied by a sly grin. "Oh my, this young lady is completely drunk. Do you need me to take her back in my carriage?" He sneered, continuing, "It's easy, she's just a lady after all." Nade quickly responded, his voice polite yet firm. "No, it's fine." The men, undeterred, approached Shayna's chair. "Kids should stay out of this. Let the adults handle it. Help her up." The man in the lead raised his hand, about to touch Shayna, muttering, "She looks really beautiful up close." His eyes gleamed with lust. Incredible. Just as his hand was about to touch Shayna, Shirone moved like lightning, gripping his wrist tightly. His voice was cold as ice. "Why haven't you pulled away yet?" Shirone's eyes were icy and sharp as he stared directly at the two strangers. "Don't touch our professor!" Both men were stunned by Shirone's attitude, and then one of them shouted, his voice full of venom, "You dare, brat!" "How dare this kid?" the man shouted, his voice filled with malice. "If you're students, why are you wandering around here at night? Kids like you should go sleep with your mothers." Shirone stood still, his face expressionless, his gaze cold as ice. The man sneered, "All I have to do is say one word, and all of you will be expelled." Suddenly, a bolt of lightning flashed from somewhere, causing the man to jump back, screaming, his face turning pale as if his eyes were about to pop out. Nade, standing to the side, had just cast a spell and spoke in a threatening tone. "I suggest you quietly leave if you don't want to be humiliated." The other man trembled, stammering, "Thursday? That's magic." The first man panicked, whispered, "Don't tell me they're from the Amphis Academy of Magic." He thought to himself, his heart pounding, "If that's the case, this is beyond my reach." Just then, a calm yet cold voice rang out, "Administrative Officer of Chris, Siver Douglas." The man turned around, stunned to see his wallet in Eruki's hand. "My wallet, when did you take it?" the man screamed, his face pale with shock. Eruki remained calm, flipping through the wallet's contents, and asked, "Are you someone with authority?" He tossed the wallet toward the man, sneering, "If you want to expel these kids, come find Mekadin Eruki. I'll be happy to deal with it." The wallet flew straight and hit the man in the face, leaving him stunned. The man stammered, his voice trembling, Mekadin?" The image of a powerful Mekadin, with terrifying strength and a renowned history, flashed through his mind. A first-class noble, a family of royal advisors for 3 generations. Is it really that Mekadin? Both men were horrified, quickly turning and fleeing, muttering, "We should never have messed with them. What's the point of flaunting your power like that?" Nade watched them run and then turned to Eruki, puzzled. "Why did you mention the family? I thought you didn't like it." Eruki sighed, explaining, "Only scumbags care about relationships. Let's go. The food was great, but now my mood is ruined." Behind them, Sheena was still heavily drunk, slumped on the table, her lips curving into a dreamy smile. Nade, eyes gleaming, quickly snapped a photo. He held up the freshly printed photo, spinning around, thrilled as if he'd struck gold. "Look at this. A perfectionist professor, drunk and dozing off like this. Shock news." Eruki, holding the camera, nodded in approval. "You took the photo? Not bad." Nade grinned widely, laughing. "Our group just escaped being disbanded." Meanwhile, Shirone, sweating profusely, whispered, "You guys." On his back, Sheena lay motionless, as heavy as a block of meat. "Why do I have to carry Sheena?" Nade laughed slyly, teasing. "What's wrong? Jealous of you." Eruki chimed in nonchalantly. "You're the strongest out of the 3 of us." The sight of Shirone helplessly carrying Sheena on his back, weighed down by her drunken state, made Nade burst into laughter. But after just a few steps, Nade was already panting, "I'm gonna die." Eruki, weaker than him, mocked. "Thought you were strong? I'd be flying by now." Eruki approached, whispering to Shirone, "Try using the diagram." Shirone looked confused. "Is it just as simple as wanting to use it?" Eruki explained, "You can only use the diagram once you activate your domain." Nade suddenly jumped in, as if he'd just remembered, "That's right, the kingdom also has magic swordsmen." Eruki patted Shirone's shoulder, encouraging, "I knew you had talent." Shirone's eyes lit up, excited. "Really, I want to learn." Eruki nodded and guided. "First, close your eyes and focus on yourself." He gently directed, "I'll ask a few guiding questions. Just follow my voice." Shirone nodded seriously. "Okay." He shut his eyes, sinking into a deep mental space, thinking to himself, "I need to feel myself first. Reflect deeply." In the stillness, Eruki's voice echoed. "Can you hear me? Breathe deeply. Slow your breathing." Eruki stood behind him, his voice mysterious. "Listen carefully and answer. Where did your first kiss with Senior Amy happen?" Shirone's eyes snapped open in disbelief at the prank. Nade clutched his stomach, laughing loudly. "Ha ha! That's hilarious." Shirone got tricked. The night sky was a deep purple, dotted with a crescent moon and twinkling stars, beautiful like a painting. The 3 of them walked across the bridge, and Shirone spoke as they walked. "Hey, stop using her weaknesses to ask for things." Nade pouted, dissatisfied. "Why not?" "We worked hard to get it." Shirone spoke softly, seriously. "You know Professor Shayna? Today, she must have had a tiring and sad day." Sheena was still asleep on Shirone's back, her breathing steady. Eruki spoke up, his voice deep. Professor, she just wants us to avoid the pain she went through. Nade fell silent, avoiding the gaze of his two friends. He scratched his head, then sighed, making up his mind. All right, but the former president entrusted the group to me. If the group falls apart, then Nade grumbled. But in the end, he threw the photo into the river. The photo sank, blending into the flowing water. Well, everything will probably be fine, he murmured. The three of them exchanged looks, their eyes resolute, and in unison, they said, that's right, just do our best, awesome. Suddenly, Sheena sat up, her voice booming and startling the students. What's that supposed to mean? Shirone, flustered, stammered, Professor, are you awake? Sheena quickly replied, her tone apologetic. Sorry to trouble you all, I apologize. She swiftly put on her jacket, calmly stating, I will keep your secret. The three of them were confused, replying in unison, huh? Seeing that the students didn't understand, Sheena explained, what I mean is, I won't punish you. Got it? The three of them blinked, then cheered. Really? Sheena pointed at the three of them, her voice stern like a professor giving an assignment. And I'm giving you 1 month. Show me some interesting magic. If you truly care about your research group, then use that confidence to persuade the academy. Sheena spoke with passion. I want you all to achieve what you truly desire. Her powerful declaration filled Shirone with inspiration, and he softly spoke. Professor. Nade, standing to the side, responded immediately moved. Yes. He stepped forward to Sheena, making up his mind. Whether we have to present or not, we'll prove the value of our research group with confidence and pride. Eruki also eagerly chimed in. We've got to use our intellect and make it count. Sheena smiled, encouraging them. Go for it, you troublesome students. Nade excitedly replied, just don't be too amazed. Standing before this scene, Shirone smiled in satisfaction, thinking to himself, everything is still the same. Nothing has changed. He smiled happily, feeling lighthearted. But I feel so much better. The four of them continued walking across the bridge. At this point, the students finally turned to Sheena, starting to ask questions out of curiosity. Professor, when did you wake up? Nade asked curiously. A mage who gets knocked out by just a few drops of alcohol? The question made Sheena hesitate, her face turning bright red. What? Wait a minute. A few days later, at the Amphis Academy of Magic, beneath the vast blue sky dotted with fluffy white clouds, the atmosphere began to buzz with excitement. Whispers and murmurs rose all around. What's this? A research presentation? A large poster on the bulletin board drew a crowd of students stopping in their tracks. Since when did Senior Shirone join this group and Senior Eruki too? Everyone gathered around, puzzled by the unfamiliar name of the research group. But what is spiritual science? The poster, printed in mysterious gray, with images evoking a sense of the unknown, accompanied by bold lettering that piqued everyone's curiosity. Spiritual Science Research Group. The terrifying truth about Amphis Academy of Magic. Outside the castle, questions rang out. Senior Shirone and Eruki really joined? Is this really an academic presentation? A question rang out through the crowd. Rewinding time 10 days earlier at a place called Istus. Nade walked in, his hands on his head, shouting, I can't come up with anything. He slumped onto the sofa, letting out a long sigh. On the table in front of him, piles of cards were scattered around. Across from him, Eruki was lying on the chair, sighing in frustration. Next to them, Shirone slouched on the couch, looking dejected, unsure of what to do. Eruki reached up to touch his nose, muttering, no matter how long we stay up all night discussing, look at these topics on the table, elves, zombies, exorcism, spiritualism, supernatural senses, ghost, divinities, possession, extrasensory perception, aliens, souls, Ouija boards, the afterlife, out-of-body experiences, ghost stories, doppelgangers. He paused, exhaling loudly. If we keep going like this, none of these topics will be really interesting. Nade glared at the pile of cards in his hands, one side reading ghosts, and the other elves, his face full of disappointment. Nade held the card labeled exorcism in one hand and out-of-body experience, supernatural senses, and soul in the other, his face full of confusion. Even if these things are real, how are we supposed to recreate them during the presentation? The topic cards fell in a cascade onto the table, reflecting the trio's sense of helplessness. It had been 3 days since they promised Professor Sheena, confidently declaring that their presentation would make an impact. But now, what they were researching was the science of supernatural souls. Shirone sighed, remembering Sheena pointing at all three of them, her voice firm. Show me a ghost or something. He thought to himself, feeling defeated. How can we show something invisible to the naked eye? This is why Nade was on the brink of losing his mind. He threw the stack of photos up, muttering to himself, why did I throw those photos away? His eyes were bloodshot, as if filled with both regret and confusion. Eruki muttered, well, I'm already crazy to begin with. Shirone, our main character, yawned deeply, rubbing his eyes. I can't do this anymore. He turned to Nade, about to continue. Nade, about this. But as he glanced over, he suddenly froze, his mouth clamping shut. Shirone jumped, yelling in surprise when he saw a translucent image of Nade standing there, grinning widely at him. Shirone fell backward off his chair, tumbling to the ground. Nade from behind chuckled with amusement. How's that? Maybe we can fool him like this, say it's a ghost. Eruki, still lounging with his legs crossed on the chair, responded nonchalantly. That's just a flash shadow. Shirone, struggling to get his chair back up, his voice still trembling. It looked at me, Nade. It scared me to death, Eruki sighed, glancing over. A mage getting tricked by that? Nade innocently laughed. What? But it fooled Shirone. Eruki raised an eyebrow, asking, if it only fooled you for 2 seconds, does that count as being fooled? Shirone, hearing that, was stunned, then jumped up, clenching his fists and shouting, no need to verify. He emphasized once again, we don't need verification. Nade chuckled. Right? So let's go find Sheena's weakness. Eruki, resting his chin in his hand, pondered. No, I think he's onto something. Shirone turned to Nade, explaining, it's not that I was scared because I was tricked, Nade. It's that a deep fear inside me was triggered. Nade looked surprised. Explain more. Shirone became serious. Instead of trying to convince them with evidence, we should evoke that feeling, the hidden fear within everyone. We'll evoke the hidden fear within them, Shirone said, his eyes lighting up. Eruki nodded, as if he had just had an epiphany. Hung too. You mean we need to change our strategy? Instead of trying to prove something for them to believe, we make them believe first, then provide the evidence. Shirone nodded in agreement. Exactly. It's a psychological approach. Nade, completely ecstatic, grabbed Shirone's face and shook it, shouting, you're the one who will save our group. Shirone grimaced, pushing Nade's hands away, shouting back, you haven't showered in 3 days. Eruki, resting his chin in his hand, pondered. An inverse concept. Very clever. He then pointed at Nade's shadow, continuing, but the problem is, if we use a creepy magic trick like this, superstitious people probably won't believe it either. Can you make it move more dramatically? Eruki challenged. Nade, who was being pushed away by Shirone's grimace due to his terrible smell, immediately responded, of course. He raised both hands, magic starting to spark. If I use the shadow flash like this repeatedly, Nade shouted, watch this. A loud boom echoed, and a series of shadows with Nade's expression appeared, flickering rapidly. Nade, completely hyped up, jumped and sang, if I throw out 24 per second, I could create a super realistic animation. Shirone and Eruki stared at Nade, who hadn't slept in 3 days, now jumping around as if possessed. Shirone sighed, turning away in frustration. No, we can't use this method. Eruki, resting his chin in his hand, suddenly asked, could we make a machine? Nade stopped jumping, scratching his head in confusion. I did think of that, but there's one problem, he began illustrating. I could program a machine to project images. For example, someone walks into the forest, suddenly sees a ghost and screams, ah, a ghost. But if someone doesn't react, they'll calmly think, what's this? It's just fake. Shirone nodded in agreement. You're right. I was shocked because your shadow was staring straight at me. Suddenly, a hand shot up, accompanied by Eruki's confident voice. Well, I can solve that problem. Both of them jumped, speaking in unison. You can do that, Eruki? How? Eruki pointed to the sky, calmly saying, you just need to predict their reaction. We'll use the theory of complex systems, Eruki declared, Shirone repeated, his eyes lighting up. Predicting reactions. Keep going. An image of Shirone's daily routine appeared as an illustration. Eruki continued, after analyzing people's reaction habits, we can program it. For example, if we predict Shirone will look to the left, a ghost will appear to the left, staring directly at him. When Shirone gets scared and runs, the system will give 2 options. Chase him or continue staring. Shirone's eyes widened, exclaiming, you can actually do that? Eruki nodded. The habits of people at the academy are quite similar. Nade can do it, but we'll need a lot of data, he elaborated further, and a massive amount of memory too. But more importantly, we need a way to transmit the entire program to all the machines, Eruki emphasized. Nade pondered for a moment. My lightning energy isn't strong enough. Suddenly his eyes lit up as if he had just come up with an idea. That's it. Shirone, you can use a photon, right? Shirone was startled, then nodded. Yeah, I can use photons. He recalled what Professor Sheena had once said. In the ivory tower, where the most advanced magic is stored, photons are predicted to revolutionize the way information is transmitted, Shirone confirmed. That's right. Professor Sheena said we can use them as intermediaries to transmit information. Nade, excited, nearly jumped for joy. Exactly. We can do this. Eruki chimed in, his voice full of excitement. We can create the perfect ghost. But just scaring them with a ghost isn't enough, Eruki said, turning to Shirone. You have another plan, right? Shirone nodded, hesitating slightly. Yeah, but I think. He furrowed his brow and continued. For example, I plan to use a psychological trick. With that, Shirone grabbed a pen and scribbled something on a piece of paper. Eruki and Nade leaned in, curious. Shirone, looking a bit flustered, looked up. What's wrong? Is it bad? If it doesn't work, we can always add another keyword. Nade, still intently looking at the paper, shook his head. Number, he affirmed. It's good. Shirone's eyes widened. Really? Nade nodded strongly, confidently. I didn't expect we could use it like this for the presentation. Eruki chimed in, his voice full of excitement. If it works, I bet the whole academy will be thrown into chaos. A full 180 turn. Shirone excitedly exclaimed, Really? That's awesome. Nade beamed. Then it's decided. He quickly assigned tasks. I'll build the machine right away. Eruki, you write the program. Shirone, prepare the photons. Shirone and Nade eagerly responded in unison. Great, we're going to save the group. But Eruki suddenly grew serious. You guys know. Nade jumped, startled. What now? Eruki said seriously, I just roughly calculated the amount of photons needed to transmit the data. Shirone, curious, asked, How much do we need? Eruki raised both hands, his tone firm. 3 times the amount we currently have, and you'll need to maintain it for 10 minutes. Eruki looked at Shirone, asking urgently, What do you think? Can we do it? Shirone and Nade's faces turned pale. Shirone stammered. 10. He was completely panicked, his voice trembling. 10 minutes? How can we manage that? 10 days later at Istus, Nade hurriedly barged into the room shouting, Hey, you two, I just went and put up the posters, and oh my God. In the room, Eruki, who had been busy writing equations, analyzing habits all day, looked up. Shirone, drenched in sweat after practicing with photons all day, turned back and asked, What's going on? Nade, excited, replied, We've made a huge impact. Everyone's saying they're coming to watch. Shirone wiped the sweat off his brow, surprised they saw the posters and still said they're coming. Eruki furrowed his brow, asking skeptically, Really? What did they say about our topic? Oh no. Did we make a mistake by putting our names on the poster? Shirone worried. This is going to be chaos. If too many people come, the workload will increase. How many do you think will show up? Nade, with a beaming smile, replied eagerly, I'm not sure, but definitely more than half the academy. From outside the door, a shout rang out, Eruki, Shirone, calm down. 17 days remained until the presentation of the Supernatural Spiritual Science Research Group. Down the hallway, Lumina walked, overhearing murmurs around her. One excited student said, Do you think it will be a lot of fun? The other nodded. Of course. Who would have thought both Senior Shirone and Senior Eruki would be presenting? Another voice confidently added, I bet this presentation won't be ordinary at all. I wonder what they'll show us. The chatter grew louder, reaching Lumina's ears. She walked down the hallway, her gaze briefly flicking over a shadowy figure between the buildings. Suddenly a voice emerged from the darkness, the face of the speaker hidden. Is it true that the Supernatural Spiritual Science Group will present something? Lumina responded calmly, her voice steady. It's still unclear whether the group can pull it off. The figure in the shadows stepped closer, continuing, According to my sources, if the presentation fails, the Academy will revoke their research room. He sneered, his tone full of mockery. Of course, that group is finished. Its glorious past has been long gone. From the shadows, another short-haired figure spoke up, but we still can't be sure. That group has Eruki, who has Savant Syndrome, and Shirone, who once defeated the Dark Mage. We can't underestimate Nade's talents. The other figure sneered, his tone full of disdain. They're still just low-level students. What we should worry about is what happens after that. Lumina walked steadily forward, her gaze unwavering. The silent battle for the research group to regain its status, to become the second masters of Istus, had officially begun. In a dark room, the sound of grinding teeth echoed, signaling that a scheme was slowly taking shape. Suddenly, the bricks on the wall moved apart on their own, and light from outside filtered in, illuminating the dark room. Under the dim light, Shirone's handsome face appeared, filled with intense concentration. He clenched his teeth, his brow furrowed, fully focused as he attempted a recovery technique. His arms stretched straight out, and the magical energy from his palms flowed out, transforming into a powerful beam of light that erupted into the space. After a moment, Shirone's hands were drenched in sweat, signs of exhaustion clearly visible. He collapsed onto the floor, his face pale, gasping for breath. In his mind, Shirone reflected, this is called mental recovery. Mental recovery, an extreme method to rapidly increase magic output when mental energy reaches its limit. It requires 20 minutes to recover, and the user must continuously push their energy to the brink, right up to the final boundary. Each spell consumes mental energy equivalent to sustained concentration for 40 minutes. Nade had once called it the stupid method, as it could end up killing the user. Thinking about this, Shirone glanced at the grandfather clock in his hand, silently thinking, if Professor Sheena knew, she wouldn't let this go. The clock displayed 5 minutes and 32 seconds. He sighed, feeling downcast. This is bad. The whole point of pushing my mental energy to its limit is to use photons for 5 minutes. Only 7 days left until the presentation. Shirone frowned, making up his mind. I have to reach the 10-minute goal. There's no other choice but to keep going, even if it completely destroys my consciousness. He sank into his thoughts, wondering if he could truly achieve it. Just then, Nade peeked into the room, looking worriedly at Shirone. Shirone, are you okay? Startled by the sudden call, Shirone jumped, flustered, and replied, Of course, I'll get it done before the deadline. Nade, with a sad look in his eyes, his voice trembling, said quietly, Honestly, this goal seems so far out of reach, it's beyond the ability of the fifth-year class. But if you fail, our group will. He couldn't finish his sentence. Both of them knew the tragic fate that awaited the group. Shirone, sensing Nade's worry, quickly reassured him, I told you, don't worry. He skillfully changed the subject, his tone light. Hey, have you finished preparing the machinery? How are you? Is your part done? Shirone asked. Nade startled, suddenly remembering, Oh, right, I'm about to run a test. Come here for a second. Shirone followed Nade into a room. As soon as he stepped in, he stopped, startled. Before him was Eruki, eyes darkened like a panda's, frantically writing an essay, the pen flying across the paper. Shirone panicked, shouting, Eruki, are you okay? He quickly stepped forward, patting Eruki repeatedly on the shoulder. Are you all right? Eruki didn't stop writing, his eyes wide open, responding mechanically, don't worry, I'll make the deadline. Shirone, at a loss for words, thought to himself helplessly, I can't stop him. This is crazy. Nade suddenly spoke, cutting through Shirone's thoughts. Here it is. Shirone marveled at Nade's creation, his eyes sparkling with excitement. He eagerly asked, Is this the prototype? Nade laughed, explaining, The final test will use your photons. I need to check the efficiency of the lights that Eruki's dad sent us. Nade guided. Hold that orb and try your magic on it. Shirone followed, holding the glass orb with both hands. Once ready, he signaled, Okay. Shirone closed his eyes, focusing his mind, channeling his magical energy into the orb. In an instant, the orb erupted in radiant, mesmerizing light, with the beam flowing through the conduit connected to it. Shirone exclaimed in excitement, Oh, this is amazing. Nade, standing beside him, grinned with squinted eyes. How's that? His voice full of pride. Not bad, right? It really is quite good. Looking at the result before him, Shirone felt confident that the group had succeeded halfway. In the following days on a rainy night, hurried footsteps echoed through the muddy, slippery ground. Nade had just entered from outside, soaked through by the rain, shivering as he took a deep breath of the cold air. The first thing he did was rush straight to Shirone's room. Standing in front of the door, Nade peered inside and called out, Shirone, the presentation's about to start. Are you ready? The inside was unusually quiet. Nade called again softly, Shirone? Suddenly, Shirone's usual grandfather clock slid across the floor, stopping right under Nade's feet. Nade bent down to pick it up, his eyes wide, pupils shrinking. He was stunned, his voice trembling with excitement. Wait, Shirone, did you really do it? Shirone stepped out from the room, sweat dotting his forehead, but his lips curled into a bright smile. He gave Nade a thumbs up, excited. Let's do this together. Before long, the day of the presentation arrived. The Spiritual Science Research Group gathered in full at the Academy, ready for their big presentation. The Academy was buzzing with excitement, everyone eagerly awaiting the presentation day. Laughter and chatter echoed, This is so much fun. The surrounding booths were just as lively, with a loud voice calling out, If you're getting food, please line up. A waitress holding a tray of drinks cheerfully announced, Here's the Academy's famous peach juice. Amidst the crowd, a pink-haired female student excitedly handed out flyers, constantly calling, Take a flyer. Just then, heavy footsteps echoed, accompanied by a gruff, dry voice. There's an event today? It was Slider Mark, the student who had been suspended for 2 months. He looked irritated and uncomfortable. Why are there so many people here? The pink-haired student stepped forward and shoved a flyer into Mark's hand. Take a flyer and line up to wait. Mark awkwardly took it, muttering, thanks. Holding the flyer, he grumbled, What's this? A flyer that looks like something a kid drew. Suddenly, Mark focused on a detail on the flyer. Aside from the eerie image, the prominent headline made him freeze, Spiritual Science Research Group, the horrifying truth behind Amphis Academy of Magic. Secrets the school wants to hide will soon be revealed. Although the title was intriguing, what caught Mark's attention even more was the name Ariane Shirone. He furrowed his brows, angrily thinking to himself, This name? I can't forget it. What kind of childish presentation is this? Who would want to watch it? He crumpled the flyer, about to toss it away, when Maria, the pink-haired girl, excitedly called out, Oh, Senior Shirone, let's go watch. She grabbed Mark's sleeve, her voice cheerful. You're going too, right? Let's go. At Maria's enthusiastic insistence, Mark reluctantly replied, Of course. Maybe I'll learn something. Without giving Mark a chance to back out, Maria decisively pulled him along, eagerly saying, The line is this way. During his suspension, both of them had received special education from the Academy. More specifically, Mark had been trapped and subjected to much harsher lessons than Maria. As Maria dragged Mark to Shirone's presentation, a group of female students gathered around, whispering excitedly. A chestnut-haired girl, shocked, pointed at Amy and yelled, "Hey, isn't that senior from the graduating class?" Her black-haired friend next to her widened her eyes, quickly asking, "What? A senior from the graduating class?" Another girl leaning in eagerly added, Where? Before long, all eyes were on Amy and Cerielle. The students collectively cheered, "Senior Amy, Senior Cerielle," chatter erupted. "Why is a senior from the graduating class here to watch a presentation from the advanced class?" A voice whispered, "Senior Shirone is Amy's boyfriend." The crowd gasped, immediately understanding, then burst out laughing. Amidst the gossip, Cerielle innocently handed a piece of cake to Amy, her tone affectionate. "Open your mouth." Amy, already embarrassed to the point of wanting to disappear, couldn't take it anymore and yelled at Cerielle, "Why do we have to watch the advanced class's presentation?" Cerielle giggled, teasing, "Oh my, how long are you going to complain because it's your boyfriend's presentation?" She deliberately emphasized, "Your boyfriend," causing Amy to cover her face, turning bright red, silently groaning. "So embarrassing. I've really brought this upon myself." Suddenly, the students' attention shifted, all eyes turning to one side. One person exclaimed in surprise, "Huh? A first-year senior is here too?" Another voice eagerly added, "How did such a rare person show up here?" Amy looked up, just as confused, not understanding what was going on. "Who is this person who's overshadowing even such outstanding alumni like her?" Cerielle pointed ahead, shouting, "Amy, look!" A figure stepped forward, the prestigious academy badge gleaming on his black suit. The crowd behind them froze, murmuring, "Why is Senior Fermi here? Don't tell me he's here to watch the presentation." The students gaped, mouths agape. Not just him, that's Senior Huxley from the Department of Electromagnetic Waves, and Senior Jakin, the electronic monster. Another voice screamed, "Senior Richard from the Alchemy Department, and even Senior Riken." The crowd could hardly believe their eyes, all exclaiming in unison, "What the heck is going on here?" The arrival of such remarkable figures left both the students and Cerielle stunned. Cerielle muttered, "Why are all these first-year seniors here?" Amy, on the other hand, remained calm and asked Cerielle, "Do you think they have something in common?" Cerielle furrowed her brows. "Something in common?" Amy looked at her coolly. "Yes, all of them." She lowered her voice and revealed, "According to rumors, they're all members of a mysterious research group called the Golden Ancient Order." In the presentation hall, the students had found their seats and the atmosphere was lively. Sheena, holding a tray of tea, approached to offer it to an elderly female teacher, but suddenly paused, stammering, "What brings you here, headmaster?" Alpheus smiled warmly, lifting his teacup. "The students have put their hearts into preparing for this presentation. Of course I must attend." Sheena quickly bowed respectfully, awkwardly inviting. "Of course, please take a seat in the honor row." Alpheus smiled and sat down next to the elderly teacher. Behind his gentle smile, his sharp eyes narrowed, calculating, "What will these kids show me today?" In front of the hall, the seating area was packed. A few people sighed, "No more seats. Stop pushing." Amy glanced around, silently assessing. This presentation, it's not ordinary. She suddenly noticed Mark and Maria sitting together, with Fermi's group further away. The first row, of course, was reserved for Headmaster Alpheus, Shayna, and the Academy's esteemed faculty members. The presence of such powerful figures made Amy wonder, is there something I don't know? Soon the entire presentation hall suddenly plunged into darkness. Only a spotlight remained, focused on the center of the stage, where the host stepped forward. He spoke solemnly, "Ladies and gentlemen, the presentation on spiritual science is about to begin." He raised his hand, declaring loudly, "Let it begin." The ambitious presentation of the Spiritual Science Research Group had begun, but 30 minutes later, in stark contrast to expectations, not a single round of applause was heard. Instead, a shower of crumpled paper balls was thrown straight onto the stage, accompanied by harsh curses. "This is crap." The students angrily shouted, "What were you expecting from a fifth-year class? Focus on studying. What a waste of time. This is supposed to be a presentation. We've been duped." Amy sat in the audience, stunned, as if paralyzed. Cerielle, sitting beside her, gently called out, "Amy." On stage, the technical staff hurriedly adjusted the lights, focusing on the center. Nade stepped forward, beginning the presentation. "Thank you all for coming today." He gave a brief introduction. "I'm Wisney, the head of the Spiritual Science Research Group, and today I will be your MC." Nade's voice rang out through the speakers, filled with confidence. "Our main topic today is spirits." Mark sat below the stage, frowning and muttering. "Spirits? Just like ghosts, right? Something like that?" On the other hand, Maria beside him, her eyes sparkling with admiration, was intently watching the stage. On stage, Nade continued the presentation. "Some of the audience may feel scared, so please be careful while watching." As soon as he finished, all the stage lights lit up simultaneously. The golden, blue, and red lights intertwined, illuminating the entire space. The magnificent display caused the audience to gasp in astonishment. Headmaster Alpheus smiled broadly, complimenting them. You've really prepared well. Sheena, a bit flustered, replied, yes, sir. In her mind, she silently evaluated, brilliant idea, a 3D room. But then she suddenly had second thoughts, feeling uneasy. No, what are they planning to do here? On stage, an image of a grand and imposing school, like an ancient castle, appeared on the projection screen. Nade held the microphone, his voice resonating, captivating. Has anyone ever heard the story of the time before this school was built? 250 years ago, Nade said, snapping his fingers. Immediately, the screen on stage shifted to show a scene of an ancient village. Nade looked up at the screen, his voice warm. This was once a small village of farmers. The scene on stage changed. The peaceful village suddenly plunged into flames and smoke from the chaos of war, swords and soldiers in disarray. Nade's voice remained steady, slow. But then, the entire continent was swept into the infamous conquest war. He continued, the people here were forced to flee, hiding deep in the mountains. Not just the civilians, but even soldiers who didn't want to fight were no exception. As soon as Nade finished speaking, the entire stage lighting turned off. The auditorium plunged into an eerie darkness. The students below were startled, staring blankly at the stage, and in unison, they exclaimed, huh? The lights? Nade's voice echoed, no longer calm but dark and eerie. Non-human entities have appeared. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air, causing several students with weak nerves to turn pale, their hair standing on end. They reassured themselves, it's probably nothing scary jumping out, right? On stage, the sound of heavy footsteps filled the air. A knight in iron armor, his feet covered in blood, suddenly appeared. Nade's voice deepened. That is the Iron Knight. The knight screamed, wildly flailing his arms, bloodied and looking like a zombie. Nade continued, he was possessed by an evil spirit. The students who had just been terrified suddenly burst into laughter. One student pointed at the stage, mocking, isn't that Eruki? What's he doing there? On stage, Eruki, clad in iron armor, staggered around, looking both exhausted and ridiculous. Eruki staggered in his iron armor, groaning as he walked, looking both terrifying and pitiful. The audience below the stage erupted into laughter. Cerielle, clutching her stomach, laughed so hard she could barely breathe. This is too funny. Amy, sitting next to her, furrowed her brows, muttering, wait a minute, is this a presentation or a play? On stage, Nade continued to lead. The stage light shifted to a cold, eerie blue, and the once peaceful village now drowned in a solemn, desolate atmosphere. Nade's voice rang out, mournful and drawn out. Olia, my love. Olia, where are you? Damn it. I came here to escape the war, but I lost you, the most precious person in my life. At this, Nade clutched his chest, his face contorted with unbearable pain. Maria, sitting in the audience, clenched her fists, deeply immersed in the story, thinking to herself, it seems he lost his lover while fleeing. On the other hand, Mark, looking annoyed, muttered with a twisted mouth, what the heck is this? Isn't this supposed to be a presentation? And when is that person going to appear? Just then, Shirone's voice rang out, causing Mark to nearly choke on his saliva. Noah, are you here? At the sound of Noah from Shirone, all eyes in the auditorium turned toward him. Under the dim stage lights, Shirone appeared in an elegant white dress, his hand placed on his chest, his voice soft and filled with affection. My love. The auditorium nearly exploded with the audience's screams. Senior Shirone! The female students blushed, unable to believe their eyes. Is that really Shirone? The male students doubled over with laughter. In the honor row, Sheena stood speechless, her mouth agape, so stunned she couldn't utter a word. Below the stage, Cerielle furrowed her brows and turned to Amy. Shirone dressed as a woman, Amy. Amy, still dazed by the intimate scene unfolding on stage, was left speechless. Cerielle shook her roughly. Amy, snap out of it. On stage, Shirone leapt into Nade's arms. Nade affectionately embraced him, his voice warm. Olia, I miss you. Shirone rhythmically replied, let's never be apart again, Noah. The two shared a loving gaze. Shirone stood on tiptoe, and Nade gently bent down, as if they were about to share a passionate kiss. Mark's face turned pale while Maria blushed deeply, stammering, don't tell me, it can't be. The male student stared intently, unwilling to miss a single moment on stage. Shirone and Nade were nearly nose to nose. Cerielle gasped, is this real? Amy trembled, in the play, they're really doing it. At the height of the tension, Eruki suddenly appeared, covered in blood-stained armor, standing behind Nade. He opened his mouth wide, as if to devour Nade. Snap! Eruki bit down on Nade's shoulder, causing Nade to scream in agony. Ah! The auditorium fell completely silent. The lights suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness. Maria, frightened, huddled closer to Mark, whispering, that was really scary. Mark, with Maria leaning on him, felt awkward. Suddenly, the center stage lights flickered on. Nade, holding an ancient book, raised it high, his voice calm. This story comes from an old diary, found during the research into the history of the Academy, just 1 month ago. Nade excitedly continued. Our research group immediately began analyzing the diary, and the result was a shocking truth. Wandering spirits searching for someone to possess. At this, some of the students began to feel uneasy, glancing at each other. Nade's sharp gaze intensified, his voice growing more intense, until today. Suddenly, a massive bell appeared behind him. Boom. The deep sound of the bell echoed, causing the audience to jump and exclaim, "Huh? That bell? Isn't that the midnight bell? It's not even 7 o'clock yet." Nade stood on stage, his voice eerie. At midnight, when the light completely vanishes, yes, at midnight, the evil spirits will appear. Maria, frightened, huddled closer to her seat, while Mark maintained a scornful expression, muttering in disdain. Nade bared his teeth, a wicked smile creeping across his face. You've never seen evil spirits at midnight, have you? That's possible, because they only show themselves to those they want. But after this presentation, I'm sure you're all more curious about the evil spirits, aren't you? In other words, you'll become familiar with the frequency of the spirits. Nade continued, his voice full of suspense. Tonight, when the bell rings at midnight, look around. You might just see an evil spirit lurking. The audience below was in a panic. Some whispered nervously, "What? That's so scary?" But others, more courageous, boldly declared, "Lies. I'll stay in the library until midnight tonight and prove it." Amidst the commotion, Nade suddenly declared, "Of course, that's if you're lucky. We'll conclude the presentation here." The entire auditorium fell silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, the stage lights flickered back on, and the grand hall was brightly lit. The students were confused. Huh? The lights are back on. Everyone was bewildered, unable to believe it. Is that it? Right after, a shower of crumpled paper flew onto the stage, accompanied by a torrent of curses. Damn it. Is this really a presentation? The students clamored in protest. There's no evidence or results. What are you showing us? Ridiculous. Believing in Shirone and Eruki. I knew it would end like this. Forget about the spirits. Amy angrily tossed her coat aside and stood up, shouting, "How embarrassing. I knew it. Getting involved with those weirdos would only bring disaster." Cerielle hurriedly ran after her, calling out, "Amy, wait." The group of students, rumored to be part of the Silent Guild, began to leave, with only Fermi staying behind, his gaze unreadable. In the honor row, Sheena bowed her head, embarrassed in front of Alpheus. "I'm sorry, headmaster," she fumbled. "I will punish those students." She forced a smile. "It's the spiritual group. It's understandable." Alpheus, however, calmly waved his hand, as if it was no big deal. "Don't worry. Why did they do that?" Shayna placed a hand on her forehead, sighing, questioning herself. Was I wrong to trust them? Alpheus stepped forward to the stage, thoughtful. If they were going to end it like this, they should never have started in the first place. He suddenly smiled, his eyes gleaming with confidence. Right, Shirone? Behind the scenes, Nade burst into triumphant laughter, as if everything was going according to plan. Nade turned to Eruki, grinning brightly. "Did you see their reactions?" Eruki nodded, his sharp gaze fixed. "Yes, I saw. You can tell just by looking in their eyes. The confused, bewildered expressions of the students, Maria's worry, Mark's mocking stare, according to Eruki, all of these were seeds. They've been planted," he said. "The mysterious bell on stage would also play an important role in this plan." Shirone stepped forward from behind, slowly speaking to Nade and Eruki. "Step 1 is a success." He was filled with enthusiasm, his voice firm. "Let's show them what spirits are really like." The moment of midnight was drawing near. The prestigious academy lay in a still, silent darkness. The deep purple clouds in the sky added an air of mystery and eeriness to the atmosphere. The wall clock ticked steadily, its hands just past 11:30. Nade stood outside Shirone's room, his voice urgent. "It's time, Shirone. Have you finished the photon meditation?" Shirone turned around, given a slight nod, then walked out with Nade. It turned out that a few days earlier, Nade had braved the rain and traveled all over the academy to carry out an important task, installing hundreds of 3D projectors throughout the campus. These projectors were connected to underground transmission wires, ready to broadcast the behavior prediction program designed by Eruki. Deep in a basement beneath the earth, Nade moved quietly, reminding Shirone, "Watch your step." Eruki glanced at his watch, muttering, 5 minutes and 15 seconds until midnight. Wait, 9 seconds left. It can't be too early or too late. We have to show them the ghost exactly at midnight. Eruki raised his hand to signal, "Proceed as soon as I give the command." Nade, adjusting the settings on the control panel, turned to Shirone. "It's your turn. The whole group is counting on you." Shirone stepped forward, placing his hands on the white crystal orb. Eruki raised his hand. "Ready." Nade anxiously glanced at Shirone, shouting, "Now." Shirone immediately focused his magical energy into the orb. Instantly, a brilliant light erupted, blindingly bright. Nade covered his eyes with his hand, marveling, "What an amazing energy source." Eruki couldn't help but be impressed. Has he really improved his magical power this much in just a month? Nade cheered, excited. "Just as expected, Shirone." But Shirone didn't show any sign of joy. He furrowed his brow and muttered, "This feels strange. It's like I'm pouring water into a bottomless bowl." Hearing Shirone's words, Nade jumped in shock, shouting, "What? Don't say things like that." He rushed to the control panel panicking. "What? What's wrong with this?" Eruki worried asked. "What's happening?" Nade with a miserable look said, "The output energy. It's not increasing. The clock's stuck at 18%. Eruki was horrified. "How could this happen? Can you fix it?" Nade, frantic, replied, "I don't know. My calculations were perfect. What the heck is going on?" It turned out that the rats had chewed through the transmission pipes, preventing Shirone's magical energy from reaching the projector. After a tense silence, Eruki, disheartened, said, "It's over. We've failed." The clock in his hand was just seconds away from striking midnight. Nade lowered his head, his voice trembling. "It's all my fault." Nade lowered his head, blaming himself. "I'm so stupid I couldn't even make a proper device." Eruki softly called, "Nade." Tears rolled down Nade's cheeks, his voice choking. "I'm sorry for dragging you all into this. I'm sorry for turning us into a joke." He wiped his tears, his voice trembling. "I'll take full responsibility no matter what." Nade turned to Shirone, pleading, "Stop, Shirone. Let me take the responsibility." But Shirone firmly replied, "No." He spoke slowly, his voice full of determination. "We've worked hard, sacrificed our sleep. Nade, Eruki, let's give it everything we've got." Shirone's eyes blazed with resolve. "I won't let it end like this." Eruki, realizing Shirone was about to do something dangerous, shouted, "Nade, stop him!" Nade, bewildered, asked, "What?" A few seconds later, he snapped back to his senses, stammering, "No, wait." Nade shouted in panic, "Is he about to use the immortality ability?" Sure enough, Shirone began to activate the energy within, his eyes glowing brightly. He was submerged in an infinite spiral dimension. Eruki and Nade desperately opposed. "Shirone, stop. Don't continue." Eruki lost his patience, shaking Shirone violently. "Damn it, why won't you stop?" Nade grabbed Shirone's hand, which was holding the crystal orb, pulling it desperately, crying out in anguish. "Please stop! You'll disappear!" Tears streamed down Nade's face as he choked out. "We can leave the research group. I don't want to lose you." Shirone softly called out, "Nade." His expression was eerily calm. "I'm no longer afraid." A bolt of blue lightning flashed through Shirone's subconscious, brilliant and mysterious. A terrifying power surged within Shirone, consuming his entire body. It was so intense that he couldn't bear it. Shirone gritted his teeth, a painful groan escaping through his clenched jaws. He recalled Amin's words, "I won't disappear." Shirone screamed in agony, his body beginning to disintegrate into shimmering particles of dust. He whispered to himself, "I must remember." Beautiful memories flashed before his eyes like a fast-forwarded film. The moment he ran into his parents' arms, Reina and Rian's radiant smiles. The first time he met Amin and Cerielle. The days spent with Nade and Eruki, and the eyes of Headmaster Alpheus filled with trust. The moments of reunion with Amin, the countless life and death battles, and the relentless effort for this moment everything reminded Shirone of who he truly was. As he realized his identity, the immortality energy within him awakened. The process of disintegration slowed, and Shirone's body began to restore itself completely. Just as Amin had said, Shirone did not disappear. He opened his eyes wide, swearing to himself, "I won't run away anymore," Shirone shouted out loudly. Nade, panicked, called out, "Shirone, are you okay?" Shirone screamed, "Output!" Eruki quickly reacted, shouting to Nade, "Need the meter." Nade rushed to the control panel, startled as he exclaimed, "Wait, hold on." Nade stared, unable to believe it. "No, wait, the clock's ticking. The output is at 157%. Tears streamed down his face as he urgently signaled, "Eruki, now." Eruki, gripping the switch tightly, followed Nade's command and decisively flipped the lever. At the same time, in the girls' dormitory, Maria's gentle voice rang out, "What? Is it already midnight?" As a seventh-year student, she closed her book with a sigh. "Such a shame, but I have to go to sleep. There's class tomorrow." Suddenly, Maria shivered, a cold sensation running down her spine. She remembered something, her heart pounding, her entire body breaking out in goosebumps. "I forgot, now I remember," Maria muttered, her voice trembling. "The story about the spirits. Will we really see a ghost at midnight?" She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "Shirone, there's no such thing as spirits in this world." As she finished speaking, Maria unknowingly turned her head toward the window. Suddenly, a ghostly figure appeared, hovering outside the window pane. Its face was grotesque, hollowed out, skeletal, with saliva dripping down, pressing against the glass. Maria froze in terror, her eyes wide, her whole body stiffened. At the same moment from afar, Amy's shrill scream pierced through the stillness of the night. "Get away!" Amy screamed, followed by the crashing sound of a shattered glass vase. In front of her stood a towering black figure, looming like a demon. Shaking with fear, Amy yelled, "What are you? How did you get in here?" The dark figure revealed to be a ghost in knight's armor, grinned mockingly. Amy's eyes widened in disbelief, thinking, did it just smile? Suddenly she turned and ran, screaming in terror as her voice echoed through the night. Cerielle burst into Amy's room, shouting loudly, "Amy, a ghost just appeared." Amy, stunned, replied, "Cerielle, you saw it too?" Cerielle, panicking, said, "Then that means..." The two of them turned to look behind them. Sure enough, the female students from all around the building poured out of their rooms like a swarm of bees, screaming in terror, "A ghost! Run!" Behind them was a battalion of undead soldiers, with grotesque, frightening forms. Throughout the campus, lights from every room blazed brightly, driving away the darkness. The entire academy shook violently, the sound of screams echoing everywhere. "A ghost! I saw a ghost!" Just as Nade had warned in the presentation, at the stroke of midnight, the evil spirits appeared in full force, taking on their most horrifying forms. The wails and screams reverberated, sending chills down the spine of anyone who heard them. The evil spirits flooded every corner from the campus grounds, classrooms, to even the students' dorm rooms. The frantic screams didn't stop. "Help! They're in the sky, too!" In just one night, the entire academy was thrown into chaos by the appearance of the evil spirits. The students were in a frenzy, screaming, "What's going on? They keep chasing us. Don't get close." The academy's glass tower, once peaceful, now shook violently. The students rushed out into the courtyard, grouping together. The female students clung to each other, sobbing, "Do something." The male students tried to use magic to fend off the evil spirits. A light brown-haired student, flustered, said, "They're everywhere. Attack them." The sound of the evil spirits' footsteps thundered, like a legion marching. They were too many, their horrific forms overwhelming, causing the students to lose all fighting spirit. They cried out in fear, shielding one another, running wildly in panic. Suddenly, the evil spirits vanished. The students were left confused. They disappeared? A male student, his eyes still filled with tears, asked skeptically. "The light." His friend beside him looked up. "Huh? There's someone on the roof." On the roof, Shirone, Nade, and Eruki stood confidently, looking down at the students. Nade clapped a few times, unbothered. "We were late for the presentation, yet everyone still came." He placed his hand over his chest, solemnly saying, "Thank you." Just then, an angry shout rang out. Shayna ran towards them, scolding as she came, "You kids, get down right now, causing chaos at midnight like this." In her hands was the projector Nade had set up earlier. Sheena grumbled, "I was in the middle of my shower, and now this." Nade, still standing on the roof, waved theatrically and winked, teasing, "The night is beautiful, Professor Sheena." Looking at the projector in her hands, the student suddenly realized, exclaiming in unison, "A 3D projector? So those ghosts were all fake?" Laughter erupted from the crowd. Shayna turned around surprised to see Alpheus, asking, "Headmaster, why are you here?" Alpheus smiled and replied, "I think the presentation isn't over yet. Let's listen to the end." Sheena. On the roof, Nade enthusiastically asked the students below, "So, everyone, according to our group's research, souls do exist. Do you believe in supernatural phenomena?" The students immediately protested fiercely. A light brown-haired male student led the charge, shouting, "Are those frauds still talking? What do you mean exist? It's all fake." Using tricks even a 3-year-old could pull off. But as he said tricks, he suddenly stopped, sensing something was off. Two female students behind him whispered, "But how did they do it?" The male student quickly turned around and whispered back, "What? They used 3D magic, obviously." The female students were still unconvinced, explaining, "This is strange. How can the 3D projections move differently like that?" The entire campus immediately buzzed with excitement. Students turned to debate fervently. "From the moment I knew it was fake, I suspected it, but I still don't get it. They must be using projections from a machine, but how could they do it all over the campus like this? They'd need an enormous amount of data and energy." Alpheus channeled his magical energy, creating a whimsical ghost, and asked with a smile, "Well, what do you think? Can you explain the trick of these kids, Professor?" Shayna forced a smile, adjusting her glasses, and pondered, "Their prank is quite sophisticated." On the roof, Shirone stood behind Nade, a subtle smile on his face, thinking to himself, "What a magician values most is intelligence. They can't control their curiosity. They're drawn in just as the ancient texts have concluded." Below in the courtyard, the male students who had mocked Nade's group were now furious. A light brown-haired male student trembled, his forehead veins bulging. "We were tricked by a 5th year. This is so frustrating, but I still don't know what mechanism they used." Even though Nade's group's performance was impressive, Sheena was still not convinced. She frowned and turned to Alpheus. "Their tricks are clever, but it's not enough for us to approve their research group." Alpheus just smiled and didn't respond. Alpheus calmly said to Shayna, "Actually, this trick is not important." His words left Shayna confused, unsure of his meaning. Meanwhile, the students continued to criticize Nade's group. "It's all fake. There's no such thing as a soul." The most agitated male student with light brown hair pointed toward Nade, shouting, "What does a fake soul have to do with supernatural research?" Nade laughed. "Oh, you still don't believe in supernatural research?" The students responded in unison. "Of course not. What we saw earlier was just a trick." Nade replied slowly, "Then let me ask you, why are you here?" The question left the crowd stunned. "What?" Nade continued, "What are you afraid of, running from something if souls or ghosts aren't real?" The students hesitated. Amy and Cerielle also remained silent. Nade narrowed his eyes, his voice slow but sharp. "Your emotions right now are the core of the supernatural research group." He hit them directly. "All of you those who don't believe in souls. As soon as you saw the ghost, you were afraid, because deep down, you already had the seed of doubt that souls or spirits might exist." Nade said, his voice persuasive and captivating, step by step winning over the crowd. "We only spark that doubt. We don't know if souls exist or not, but we are researching that very doubt. That's the essence of research." While Nade spoke, Shirone and Eruki silently nodded to each other, their eyes full of agreement. Below, a female student with chestnut-colored hair covered her mouth and whispered, "That's right. There are things we once believed to be true, now considered lies from the past." On the rooftop, Nade's voice echoed powerful, "Because you've shown us that doubt, we've proven the value of our research group." He concluded, "And that is the presentation of the Supernatural Science Research Group." Shirone, Nade, and Eruki bowed in unison, facing the students and faculty below. "Thank you very much." The students looked at each other, smiling. The male student with light brown hair curled his lips into a smirk, his gaze shifting. Soon after, the campus erupted in cheers. "Amazing. We support you. If this is the kind of special performance, I'm willing to be tricked by you as many times as needed." A voice rang out, full of emotion. "Where do we come from? And where will we head toward the future?" "Someone is exploring doubt, revealing what the eye cannot see. What do the professors think?" Alpheus asked, smiling. Sheena lowered her head, silent. Alpheus continued, "I think this presentation is very meaningful." Thad, standing beside him, respectfully said, "I have no objections, Headmaster." Sheena sighed. "I understand now." She stood upright, solemnly declaring, "The professors have decided to acknowledge the presentation of the Supernatural Science Research Group. The three Nade, Eruki." And Shirone couldn't hide their excitement and shouted, "So, does that mean—" But Shayna suddenly fumed, veins bulging, yelling loudly, "Instead, you three are suspended for 3 days, you idiots." Despite the suspension, Nade, Eruki, and Shirone hugged each other, bursting with joy. "We did it! We succeeded!" Below in the courtyard, the students cheered. "Congratulations! Keep going!" Seeing herself ignored, Sheena, furious, shouted, "Did you hear what the professor said? I said, you're suspended." Maria turned to Mark, excited. "Wow, Senior Shirone is truly..." Mark immediately responded, "Cool." His eyes sparkled with admiration. "Senior Shirone is a genius." Cerielle also looked at Shirone's group, her gaze full of awe. "Oh my God, they're so cool. Who wouldn't want to do something like that at least once, make the whole world marvel?" Amy stood beside them, silent. She thought to herself, "I can't believe it. While I've been buried in books to graduate, you've been wasting your time on something so pointless." Looking at Shirone's bright smile, Amy pouted, sneering. She gazed up at the twinkling stars, silently thinking, "I'm a little jealous, I guess." In a hidden corner, a few people in black, with shady faces, were angry at Shirone's group's success. One of them clicked his tongue. "The skinny camel is bigger than the horse. These graduates let a bunch of fifth-year kids beat them," one of them grumbled. Another, arms crossed in frustration, muttered, "Forget about taking Istus. My ant language research group admits defeat." One of the others interrupted. "They're just fifth-year students. Don't tell me you're planning to back out." The ant language researcher grew furious. "What's wrong with that? But they'll be graduating soon." A third, speaking in a high-pitched, almost feminine voice, covered his mouth and mocked, "If you don't want to clash with them next year, you'd better graduate this year." The ant researcher trembled in anger. "You better keep your group of doll collectors quiet." Losing his temper, he turned and confronted the group. "And you, the hide-and-seek game research group." Fermi, who had been silently watching with his arms crossed, suddenly spoke, his voice cold and authoritative, carrying the weight of a leader. "Enough. Stop it. We don't want to attract attention." He smirked, his words dripping with malice. "By gathering like this, we're only harming ourselves. Let's wait for the right opportunity." From a distance, Sheena quietly observed Fermi's group, letting out a deep sigh. She thought to herself, "Those punks from those shady research groups." Shayna wanted to cry, shouting, "Grow up a little." Alpheus raised his hand, using the magic Shirone had employed to create the evil spirit, laughing in approval. "It's beautiful." He stroked his beard, smiling in appreciation. "Even I, a specialist in light magic, am amazed. This method is truly unexpected." Looking up at the sky, admiring the ethereal stars, Alpheus was satisfied. "Shirone, you've completed a difficult task. Back then I thought you couldn't do it, that your limits were just that, but I was wrong." He looked down at the relic in his hand, whispering, in the future, you might be strong enough to fulfill my dream. With that, Alpheus gripped the relic tightly. On the grass, Shirone lay back, smiling brightly. This is so much fun. Nade, sitting next to him, lightly tapped his shoulder, worried. But are you really okay? Is everything normal? Shirone laughed, reassuring him. I'm fine. Eruki sat up, mocking. You're crazy. Who would risk their life for something like this? Shirone just chuckled. Eruki glanced at him and added, but you're still the best. Nade jumped up, agreeing with Eruki. You're right. If Shirone hadn't used his innate abilities, we wouldn't have succeeded. But risking our lives for this is truly insane. Eruki laid back down, laughing loudly. It was all just luck, really. Thinking about how Shirone almost disappeared using his immortality power, Eruki emphasized. But you're still a crazy guy. Shirone, hearing his friends praise him nonstop, blushed and stammered. Why do you guys keep praising me? You're both geniuses too. Eruki, predicting the behavior of the entire academy like you did is amazing. Eruki, flustered, turned his gaze elsewhere. Shirone turned to Nade. And Nade, creating all those machines. That was just the beginning. Nade, his face as red as a tomato, felt embarrassed. The three of them felt their faces burning with embarrassment, awkwardly shifting. Eruki awkwardly said, Oh, so you do know how to be modest? Nade, flustered, replied, You guys are making me so embarrassed. Shirone reached out, as if wanting to touch the twinkling stars in the sky, and shared, For me, I want to reach higher, just like those stars. His eyes shone with faith and hope. Eruki looked up at the sky, murmuring, So, it's starting? I've played enough, but maybe it's time to think about a serious career? Nade jumped up, excited. Yeah, that sounds great. The three of us should graduate together. After we graduate and step into society, there will definitely be a bunch of interesting things waiting for us. Shirone furrowed his brow, muttering, The society out there. Eruki sat up straight, smiling brightly. Sounds great. Isn't it time for us to live confidently and freely? Nade raised his hand, declaring loudly, Promise me, we'll go all the way. Shirone placed his hand on Nade's, resolutely saying, Yeah, we'll become the strongest. Eruki, the last to place his hand, whispered, But what will we use as a symbol for this promise? Nade shrugged nonchalantly. Who knows? Whatever we see, we'll use that. Suddenly, Nade had an idea, pointing to the brightest star in the sky and shouting, Long live supernatural science. Eruki immediately joined in. Don't give up, my three sheep. Shirone raised his hand, full of enthusiasm. Let's graduate together.